as you already know, Ashes of Creation has been confirmed to be a ginormous scam from start to finish. Now, I know no one watching this video is really shocked about it because we suspected this for literal years at this point. And surprise, surprise, the dude who previously did multi-level marketing was not exactly trustworthy. Shocking, I know. In any case, it's currently very funny and very hilarious watching all these content creators who were previously grifting so hard from head to toe, glazing Ashes of Creation as the second coming of Christ, now retract their statements and try to pretend that, oh guys, I actually always thought that Ashes of Creation looks a bit sus. I never trusted Steven in the first place. And one of these people is obviously who else but everyone's favorite Pirate Software. Did I mention that he worked at Blizzard for 7 years? Oh yes, he did. He's a big deal, but he's not a Nepo baby. Don't worry about that. He is the exact opposite of a Nepo baby, in fact. He's a double Nepo. Wait a minute. In any case, let's listen to Pirate Software. Once again, by the way, a lie and try to twist the truth that he somehow is the good guy in the Ashes of Creation situation. Let's just have a little bit of fun, shall we?
And I was sending them stuff back and forth with this, and I was like, hey, we got a serious moderation problem on the server. And we started linking them things. There was a guy that was actually posting comments about Jewish people every day, all day, right? He was just doing that every single day, all day. And the account would just change every single day. Guy never got banned. We had a guy that was saying that he wanted to form a group to go kill all the LGBT people on the server. We got a screenshot of that, sent it up to them. Guy never got banned. We had a guy that was claiming...
Yeah, needless to say, by the way, do not trust anything Pirate lying software ever says. This guy has been proven to be an absolute disgraceful liar in so many ways, honestly. It's absolutely disgusting. This guy will try to lie and twist any truth. He will not take a single shred of accountability. So the fact that this happened, I honestly doubt it. In fact, if you haven't watched my Pirate Software series, you should, because Pirate Software is known with evidence, with proof, that he has been trying to mass report and flag people in Ashes of Creation while the game was still in a good-ish state, because they did not submit to his will. Yes, this guy literally mass reported and tried to get people banned by contacting the developers because people dared to not do what he wanted them. They were not even a part of the guild. They were doing the game, playing the game as it was intended. And he tried to get them banned because they were in his way, and Pirate Software deserves better. So, the fact that this guy is now saying something like this, I think is an absolute lie.
Meaning that, there was people who were saying all kinds of heinous shit, basically. Like, if I could go through the whole list, but it's a ton of them. It's like dozens of people, and people all over the server were dealing with this and seeing it in global at all times. When I brought this up to them, what led me to quit the game was actually this response from Margaret, which I have right here. This is from our group DM. And in this...
So, I'm not going to go over this, but if you actually pause and read the response and everything that's going to go forward in this video, it's not going to be that long, by the way. It's going to be like 10 more minutes. Yeah, Pirate Software once again is trying to twist the truth and make himself to be the hero in a situation that doesn't make any sense, and he's blatantly lying, and everyone who just stops and reads this actually comes to that conclusion pretty fast. It is just, once again, Pirate Software being ridiculously, hilariously Pirate Software, lying, taking no accountability, and trying to be the hero.
She wrote this: to be transparent about what happened on our end, we investigated the reports you and others submitted, because there's a lot of people submitting these. The messages in question occurred within a very short window, roughly a 15-minute span, and involved only a handful of posts. Where some of this language used was inappropriate and unacceptable, our current moderation framework does not always move directly to permanent bans for first-time.
So notice, by the way, that Pirate Software claims that there's some guy blaming the terms of service, and more about that later because it gets even more hilarious. But currently, already you can actually see that Pirate Software is lying because what he said here. He's saying the guy was day after day posting heinous, evil stuff. God forbid someone in Argentina has fun. In any case, Epstein did nothing wrong. In any case, this already kind of proves Pirate Software a liar because this proves what he said. It didn't happen every day. It was a roughly 15-minute spam of someone saying something remotely bad. Not the Pirate Software, oh, this guy was doing it for days situation. No, this is probably Pirate Software just trying to get someone banned because he didn't like them.
Offenses of this nature. In many cases, we issue warnings first, with the expectation that behavior can improve. If it doesn't, we escalate. I think this makes sense for minor infractions. You rage out, you crash out, fine. But when you have a dude that's sitting on the server praising Hitler every minute on the minute, or saying that he wants to get a group together to kill gay people, you probably should ban that person.
So, Pirate Software, just as always, I love it. I absolutely love Pirate Software because there's no hesitation. There's no second thought. Pirate Software just knows the exact best course of action. And if you're not doing exactly what Pirate Software is saying you to do, you're doing it wrong. You gotta just absolutely love this. You know, if you're not doing it Pirate Software's way, you're just wrong, okay? You're just objectively wrong. I love his absolute self-centered, narcissistic personality, so much of it, okay? He's never wrong, he's never even close to wrong, and he always knows the best solution.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel like that's a stretch to ban that guy. And those were the ones we were reporting, and they didn't do it. This made me quit the game. So I quit on, I believe, the 28th. Is when I made my announcement about this. I told the whole guild about it. I was like, I'm out, dude. I can't do this shit anymore. And a lot of people in the guild were like, I don't want to...
Yeah, I believe every word you say.
...support that either. This is insane. It's awful to watch, and they didn't want to deal with it. So quit, and then 4 days later, they killed the company.
So Pirate Software's accounting of what happened or transpired 4 days before Ash's creation crashed down and burnt paints an implied picture of perhaps incompetency, inefficiency, or the inability to perhaps moderate very serious bad actors within the community or within the IP. A problem which, as many of you MMO players may perhaps know or have experienced, can be a common problem in MMOs. And also...
The biggest problem is people like Pirate Software and MMOs. During the Roach Out thing, Pirate Software literally said that he's contacting people that he previously worked at Blizzard to try and get them fast-track banned. And his reasoning for banning people was that they just said something he didn't like. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't anything. He just made some kind of scripted auto-detected language, and that automatically reported them to Blizzard, and, you know, he just got them fast-track banned. That's why no one likes Pirate Software. And in Ashes of Creation, again, he just tried to mass report people and tried to talk with Steven, the guy who owned Ashes of Creation at the time, who now rug pulled and ran, about getting people banned. So, you know, great person.
With the fact that a lot of people are starting to realize, especially with the fact that Ashes of Creation, even though you can install it if you have it, has been pulled from the Steam store and refunds are now rolling out to the dismay of many people still hoping and coping for a glorious return, I suppose. There's people getting angry, and I totally understand. I think that's valid. I think the emotions are valid. I think people getting pissed off that their money and hopes were taken away is valid. I think people are very understandably upset at the lack of communication and the lack of official communication, even despite, you know, the company basically being a shell. There's nobody working there anymore. And I see posts like this where, you know, Margaret Krohn's face is plastered next to Steven Sheriff. But I always want to give...
Just for full transparency, Margaret Krohn You remember the great stallion that's gonna mount the world in Game of Thrones? Yeah, I would not hesitate. Okay, boys, listen. I'll be full transparent. Mommy Margaret. Oh boy.
Everyone the benefit of the doubt. I mean, for Steven, we have a plethora of evidence from DMs to financial.
Yeah, obviously he's the CEO and he's the board of the company that fired himself. So yes, he knew the ship is going down.
Records to public filings to court records, painting a very baffling picture of the decision making that went behind the scenes. And I think understandably people look at very public facing people like Margaret and be like, how could you not know? How could you have not known?
So this is true. She's, by the way, the community manager, okay? And the thing is, again, I've worked in finance. I know these things. People who are community managers know this stuff, especially if you have been a community manager for years and you actually have an in-depth association with the community. Because that means that you also have an in-depth knowledge of stuff that's happening in company because you're a community manager. Your job is effectively just to talk to people in the company. So the two groups of people that are always going to know when a company is going under without actually being told, except the CEO, obviously, and the board, is always finance and, again, I forgot the fucking name. Bureaucracy, no. Legal, no. Legal never knows anything, they're idiots. Accounting, there we go, accounting. Because a lot of the things that typically happen in accounting and finance when a company is about to go under are gonna change. And it's gonna be blatantly obvious that a couple of things that should be happening and are very important just magically no longer are that important or flat out no longer happen, which is an obvious red flag. Anyone in finance will always know that the company is going down under. And considering Margaret was a community manager, she most likely talked to those people. She heard things on the grape vein, whatever it's called, and she should have known. There is no world where a community manager for Ashes of Creation for literally years that's probably good friends with everyone in the company by that point, and how many people in the company knew that something is strange. She knew. There is no world, I would say, where she did not really know what's happening. Maybe she didn't believe it. I don't necessarily think she's an evil person. I don't necessarily think that she actually wants people to get fired, obviously. But she had some inkling of understanding at the bare minimum.
You know, this is like, Himmler or whatever, not knowing what Hitler did, right? Or whatever. How could you not have known what was going on? And I think.
Okay, that's the situation about this. And now let's get back to Pirate Software.
And I want to give her voice a platform here on my channel.
Yeah, so Pirate Software started attacking her because, I mean, obviously you're Pirate Software.
She said this was not what that message was in reference to, in regards to the message.
Oh, actually, we need to do this a bit more.
May not have known. I mean, it's a odd history where he got away with in bed, and in a these lyrics office was her voice a platform here on my channel. She said this was not what that message was in reference to, in regards to the message that Pirate Software was showing in his video.
Yes, the previous one that we saw right here.
It was in reference to someone calling him ferret fucker. And good shit, your Kiwi Farms page is booming. We actioned the account, but did not permanently ban the person.
Yes, this makes it even funnier. Because Margaret Krohn is effectively calling out Pirate Software to be a liar who's misrepresenting what the thing is happening about. And the fact that Pirate Software just wanted to use his name, his influence, what's left of it, to make Ashes of Creation ban people he doesn't like. Because we actually know from previous engagements and documented stuff that people who have been in contact with him in the game have said about him. Because he has a very large history of trying to get people banned in games, so It's either you play by his rules or you're getting banned. That's what he always tries to do. Mass reporting from Pirate Software is completely normal. Okay, if he doesn't engage in mass reporting, God, hell is frozen. Okay, that day it's taking a break. So the fact that someone called him ferret effer and good shit, your Kiwi Farms page is booming, is the terms of service breach that Pirate Software is referring to when he previously was speaking. So Pirate Software is trying to get you banned because someone mentions Kiwi Farms and that he's a lolcow. Yes, that is how great this is. Ferret effer is obviously something that is against us, but the fact that someone comments that your Kiwi Farms page is booming, that's just pure cinema, okay? It is what it is. And that's not breaking of thoughts. But Pirate Software obviously considers it to be a breach of terms of service because he's such a big deal, obviously. Don't you know who he is? He worked at Blizzard for 7 years.
Those other folks saying super egregious things like saying they wanted to kill LGBT people, we were banning. But we had a small team and we're working through banning them as we got through them in our queue. In response to somebody else commenting at her about this video, she says, I know, I even sent Pirate Software a message with this information as well, and Kronos7,
Kronos7 is probably the same Kronos who is Pirate Software's retainer lawyer, who is not a lawyer in the US, first of all, the place where Pirate Software would be suing people. Second of all, he is from the UK, where he doesn't even have a license to be a lawyer. So that's your summarization who Kronos is. And Pirate Software is constantly threatening to sue people and take them down through this guy who legally cannot practice law and does not know how American law functions. If again, Pirate Software is just a never-ending stream of local juice.
Who that is. So if they want to make it right, they can, but if they want to just take things out of context, nothing I can do other than state the facts from my perspective. Also, I was tempted to reply to his video in the comments, but I think he might censor and remove my comment or something, so I didn't want to do that. But maybe I should, so I can at least say,
yep,
I did. I think really 2 reasons why I want to give her the benefit of the nuts. The other whole little side drama between Pirate Software and Margaret have gone to their DMs, and he responded saying, hello, your version of events in this message is not correct. On January,
anything that doesn't fit Pirate Software's narrative is incorrect, obviously. And by the way, this is classic Pirate Software, by the way. He has done this so many times because, I mean, it worked for him for years to lie and do things like this. But now people are actually asking proof, okay? No one's trusting Pirate Software and saying in 1984 or whatever, pick a year at random. You actually sent me this screenshot. No one's trusting Pirate Software because he's just lying. He's not going to provide any proof of this being factual. And if he actually provides proof, you're going to probably be able to read it and say like, oh, This is nothing. Yet again, Pirate Software. You're just blowing this out of proportion in hopes that you look good for no reason, which is hilarious.
February 6, 2026, I reported Irish Kiwi and Avok to you for making accusations I sexually abused the ferrets at our rescue and for claiming they were part of Kiwi Farms, a hate group that organized swatting my home.
He does have a furry ferret suit. That's by the way where that's coming from. It's not like people are just magically pulling it out of thin air.
In-game and screenshots of their message were provided. On January 14, 2026, I did a message again stating that the players had not been banned in the provided ban wave and stated this was against the game's terms of service. Your response was that not every report may result in a permanent ban.
Yep, that's pretty much accurate.
And the ban list only displayed characters that received a permanent ban. You further explained that your team was unable to handle the influx of tickets. I then stated to you again what Kiwi Farms is and that they were involved in swatting my home multiple times.
Yes, this is not against the terms of service. If someone's talking about Kiwi Farms Pirate Software, guess what? You can't just... You have no right to try and get them banned. I know, shocking, you're not the king of the universe, but I mean, wow. It's hilarious. This guy actually unironically posts this and says, "Do you know who Kiwi Farms are?" Yes, exactly. I, Pirate Software, don't like them. That's why that's against the terms of service. That's effectively what this whole thing boils down to. And it is hilarious. And by the way, this is also the reason why Pirate Software is the good guy who doesn't like Ashes of Creation, and when it shut down, he was right. Dude, Pirate Software is the guy who was on Steven's side when the Narc Desert situation happened. So is Asmongold, but I mean, Asmongold's a low IQ idiot. So the fact that he cannot get anything right is not surprising. And well, Pirate Software is the same. But the moment when I was fully convinced that Ashes of Creation is a scam was the Narc Desert drama. Because that situation was wild. Because Narc was right, but also Steven was right. Narc poorly phrased his argument, and Steven phrased it in a way that he was right. They were both right, because, dude, the desert situation, if you don't know what the desert situation is, Ashes of Creation gave an update and the desert. And the desert was empty. There was literally nothing in it. And that's what Narc was talking about. And he was right, because there wasn't anything in there. But then came Steven and said, wait a minute, the desert is right here like we promised. And he was right. So how can these two things be right at the same time? Well, it's simple. Narc was talking about the whole desert. And Steven was saying that, oh, look at that. Remember that video 5 years ago that had the desert in it? All of that is here. All of that is here. All of it is here. And he was right. The desert that was shown in the video 5+ years ago was there. But nothing else was there. So, effectively, Ashes of Creation wanted the players, the community, everyone to praise them for making the desert that they already revealed in a video 5 years ago, and they added nothing new to it. So effectively, they had the desert ready for 5 years, that small chunk of it, and they just didn't release it. And then 5 years later, they released that small chunk of the desert that you could see in the video, and nothing else. And they wanted you to praise that. And then the CEO, Steven, the rug puller, goes on and says, I'm gonna sue you, Narc, if you keep saying that it's a scam and whatnot. Bro, that was the moment I knew that Ashes of Creation is effed. That at some point it's gonna absolutely go down in flames. That was the point where I was 100% convinced. And the problem with that situation was a lot of people did not believe Narc. Because again, Narc's position was he explained his position really poorly. And then he went to Asmongold, someone who is literally just gonna say aha and, bobble his head like a retard. And he went against Steven, who was right, because, well, the desert that they showed 5 years ago, that 1% of the desert was actually there, and he was right on a technical level. But the rest of the desert didn't exist. And Narc could not point that out, sadly, and that's how it was. But at that point, I was sold that Ashes of Creation is gonna at some point just be a scam, because that is a massive red flag. And especially from the CEO, okay? From a developer, that's fine. That just means problems down the line. But from a CEO pulling something like that, listen. I worked in business before I became a slop YouTuber, okay? I know this stuff. I know when someone does something even remotely close to that, it's going to be a week, it's going to be a month, it's going to be a year, maybe it's going to be 3 years. But at some point, they are going to crash and burn extremely hard because of lies. Because stuff like that, while technically not lies, is, well, as close to lies as you can honestly get. And that's kind of it.
Times 2025. And it just keeps going on about, I guess, Kronos then provided an image showing the player Gooby saying that they want to form a group to kill LGBTQ players. Your response to this was to contact local law enforcement, and that responses are delayed due to a small support team. You also stated that you would look into escalating tickets in the queue. And just keeps going on. At no time did you ever state that an account was actioned in any way. You stated while some language used was inappropriate and unacceptable, our current moderation framework does not always move directly to permanent bans for first-time offenses of this nature. In many cases, we issue warnings first with the expectation that behavior can improve. If it doesn't, we escalate. Okay, I have a log of the entire conversation. I can display it for you if necessary. What more do you want to discuss? Margaret then says, dude, I don't want work there anymore. Before, I used to avoid talking about what actions were done per person, and I was being careful about what I said. Which, if you're familiar with companies, they usually don't tell you what happened. Of course, depending on the game, right? I'm just telling you what the actions are now because I have nothing to lose. I don't have a job anymore. I wanted to be clear about what that one section was in reference to. That's all. Take it or don't. The pirate...
Yeah, so she doesn't even understand really what's the problem here, and Pirate Software is like, aha! I found something to be right about. Now, granted, he's not right about shit as always, but it's kind of funny. He thinks he is.
Retorts, doesn't matter if you don't work there anymore. You stated one thing to us and now a completely different thing in public. You've misrepresented the entire interaction you had with everyone in that conversation. The entire chat log shows what I said above is the actual course of events.
Yes, obviously. Yeah, I read that and I very much believe it. No, not really.
Also, you weren't just clearing this up with me, you were spreading it online in reference to what she was talking about, I guess, on her Facebook. I guess for anyone interested in their exchange that from...
Yeah, it's Kiwi farms. These guys are talking about Kiwi farms, and I don't like Kiwi farms. That's against the toss. He's just so absolutely narcissistic, it's crazy. Anyway, that's great. That's typical Pirate Software stuff right there. That was Nefas QS 10 out of 10. Bye.